really encompassing of a lot of different things, which is specifically, um, display, search, YouTube. That's kind of all under Google, and Gmail being one of them. To be quite honest, I haven't really leveraged Gmail ads before, so I really can't speak to that. But for search, I honestly wouldn't bother. And search specifically is when you set up campaigns, you target keywords, and when people type in the keywords in Google search, then your ad will be triggered and show. The reason why is because a lot of times, basically, or pretty much most of the time, you can't align the intent that a user has with the keyword. Let's say if you're saying like, oh, World War II game, um, that we really don't know what the intent of if that game is. They could be, or if you say Call of Duty as a keyword, they're probably looking for something relating to Call of Duty, whether it's a guide or any number of things. And guess what? Your game isn't Call of Duty, so that's not going to work. And a lot of times it just doesn't align with the user intent, and you're just throwing your money away. So that's why I never say to do search. Um, but for display, YouTube, all the things we mentioned about, those are the areas I would focus on there. Um, Now for Twitter, uh, I always say like lead with the organic efforts first because you can get a lot out of organic methods, whether they're manually done or even if you have some form of automation in place. And if you do decide to use automation, just be careful because that can get out of hand if you're not careful. But even for advertising for Twitter, I don't leverage that too much. And the only reason being is because, yes, they have gotten a lot better. I think several months ago, they have actually revamped a lot of the targeting and everything. So it's a lot more honed in, which is kind of cool. Um, but I just don't see the same type of results that I get with like Facebook or like YouTube, for example. But it is a great way to, from an awareness perspective, I would focus on that. But they do have lots of options available there too, in terms of like a lot of similar offerings that we've talked about with Facebook or Google. So it's definitely something worth to consider. But I would at least start out with organic methods on Twitter. And for Facebook, again, what I mentioned before is instant experience, carousel ads, and lead ads are probably the best ones to go with. You can incorporate video in a lot of those. You can do video specific, and make sure to check what the objectives are in Facebook. And what I mean by objective is it could be a campaign could be focused for clicks, could be focused for video views, it could be focused for conversions. There's a lot of different things. Make sure that whatever you're setting up aligns with your objectives of and your goals. Because if let's say you want people to, um, you know, convert and sign up for your email list, then you don't want to set up a click campaign objective because what Facebook's going to do in that case is really focus on, oh, I'm just going to get the best amount of clicks on people who I think will click on this ad. Whereas if you do conversion objective, they're going to be like, oh, I'm going to serve this ad to people who I think will convert based off of the settings. So make sure you have those in place. But those three ad types, instant experience, carousel, and lead ads are kind of the way I would go with Facebook. But there are a lot of other options too. And depending on your strategy or your game, it might warrant to explore some of those too. So if there's one though I'd call out as far as just don't use it, it would definitely be Google search. Because like I said, it's just really difficult to align that intent. Unless, of course, you're a big entity and people recognize your name. But then again, if it's especially if it's like branded terms of whatever your studio name is or your game is, then you might be getting that organically anyways. And unless people are bidding on it, then maybe you would want to do that for like more safety purposes or protection, as I like to call it. But otherwise, don't bother with Google search.
Thank you. This is absolutely fabulous. I mean, I'd like to just ask you one sort of final question about Reddit, but before I do, you picked up, you used the word strategy, and you reminded me, that every game, every indie should have a marketing strategy, even if they're new, even if they're just starting out. Otherwise, the game's just not going to get seen. Um, is that something that you offer? Can you help as part of your consultancy service to develop a strategy with indies?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's one of whether it's from a consulting perspective or even managing services, we always go into looking at, developing what's going to be an effective strategy. And it could be more holistic, it could be more specific, and it varies quite a bit depending on, the needs of the people that I work with. For example, I had one individual where we were focusing on a lot of different things. And this is just a consulting client. And then it came up that he was approached by a publisher. And then obviously his needs shifted dramatically. And we developed a strategy or what's kind of a good course to consider, of because it ended up that that first publisher that approached him wasn't necessarily um, didn't work out or it didn't work out. So then, but it was still top of mind. It was one of his main objectives in terms of working with me was, I'm a solo dev. I want a publisher. So then we developed a strategy in terms of what are the means basically to get representation, because that's what you want. And from that strategy, he followed through with it and he ended up finding his ideal publisher. So
Yeah, no, that's great.
So that's
I
yeah,
suppose that's like build a community to show the publisher that you have an audience for your game already, right?
right. And on a different level, though, let's say more basic, strategy. I mean, yes, that's something we provide, but but in addition to that, I do have on our website, we do have a free marketing plan template. So basically, that outlines the entire marketing plan down to the T as far as what channel assets and things like that. So that
What a fabulous thing!
yeah,
What's the URL for that, please?
the you can actually get it. It's a pop up that comes up when you visit the site, but it's just rengenmarketing.com.
Thank you.
And there's a guide that goes with it too on the blog post. That says it's how to develop a marketing plan, and it has a link to download to sign up for the email list, and then you will get that in your inbox as far as the marketing plan.
That's absolutely fabulous. Thank you. What great value as well. Um, so yeah, I think my final question actually is we've certainly interviewed people on this channel and spoken to people about going viral on Reddit, and that being helpful to promote the title and get people interested. What's your experience there, please?
So I would say the main thing to really focus and hone in on is it, and I might make this sound too simple, but it's really true, is, go in with the intent to provide value with your post and also make something worth sharing. So yes, this can be really hard to hone in on and determine, okay, what is that? That's the magic question, right? Well, it varies on a different level, on a lot of different levels. But the last and final thing, keeping those two things in mind, is going to be look what other people are doing. Look what content is going viral, and look at it from an analytical perspective, not like compare and despair. Because if you say like, oh well, I don't have that and I don't have that, you're going in with a negative mindset, and it's not going to be helpful to trying to go viral. So whether another thing too is what I found is, and you'll see this across the board too with other posts, is go in making a statement. Don't like ask people to answer a question. I'm sure it can still work in some cases, but a lot for at least your heading of your post. But go in making a statement, and it could be a very simple one. And I generally find that
Example?
I'm trying to think, and it could be seriously like very simple, like you like let's say you're working on a new mechanic or a new attack for your game. It's just like, oh, new attack for X title, and then you can insert like an imager GIF, and that's it. So you make a statement, you show what the statement is about, and then people can engage with that. Now, think of it this way too. If you use these concepts and ideas on trying to get viral, the biggest thing, like I said, is not just looking at what other people have done, but test it out. You're probably not going to go viral right away. You might be able to, but it's going to take a lot of trial and error. You're going to have to test things a lot. And that's more important. That's very important too. So if you're really trying to develop some type of strategy to go viral, I would say provide value, make something that's worth sharing, and just kind of follow those things and test. Always be testing, because if you're not really going to have that insight. Like these people that are posting stuff, unless they're not necessarily going to be doing it right the first time. And if they do, they might have gotten lucky. They might have had a really awesome game that they took forever to make and has a lot of polish to it. There's a lot of factors, but that's what I would do if you're, and going viral is sometimes not necessarily the right mindset. That's why, again, going back to just providing value and make something worth sharing, because if you go in with those things, you're probably going to be disappointed. So don't lead with that. Just make sure, and don't be promotional too. And not only that, like a lot of Reddit posts, they have or channels, subreddits, they have like a 10% rule where they'll review. And if you have so 1 out of every 10 posts can only be promotional. So if you try, basically they look at that as like spam and not providing value to the community. Hence, again, why I say value so much. So don't be promotional. You can have ways of indirectly promote through a comment. If people are asking about the game, you can mention the game in there. Don't stuff it with links to your website, because Redditors will call you out on it. So just, again, provide value and focus on content that's worth sharing.
Thank you. I know I said that was the last question. I got one more. Is that all right?
Yeah.
Thank you. YouTube, anything specific on the promo videos?
So promo videos as in trailers, or just ads as a whole?
Yeah, trailers. But it would be good to sort of hear from you what you think about the ads as well, and about the best combination between putting up trailers and ads.
Yeah, sure. So for a trailer, what I would recommend is, because I know a lot of people can struggle with this. Well, the first and foremost, you want to provide something that has a lot of gameplay. Obviously, I mean, that's going to be, but not just gameplay, but also maybe other elements of the game too. It gives people a much better sense of it than just the gameplay. But it depends on what your game is too. Sometimes that might be important. Sometimes it might not. But the more important thing I would say is, and this is, I think, a very difficult concept for people to grasp sometimes, but you want your trailer to have some type of narrative. And what I mean by that is, if there's a way through the showing images of gameplay that progresses and tells a story, then that's going to be a lot more captivating than just showing a bunch of gameplay footage, because you really want your trailer to start.
Like developer diaries kind of thing. I mean, vlogs.
Oh, vlogs.
So it's like, here are the developments of the game. This is what's going on in the studio.
I see what you're saying.
And then we've made, the story of the game that way. Or do you mean individual trailers that?
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yes. So not necessarily. When I say story, I'm basically saying, think of your traditional trailer that just shows featured images of the gameplay, but align that in a way where it kind of tells a story. I think I did write about this on a blog post, and I think one of the examples I used was, I forget which version of the trailer it is now, but Church in the Darkness does a great job of having a narrative in their trailer. And then also, I think the game is called 314. And that's a really good example, because what it does, it's just shapes, and it's like a platformer. But between the use of music and how the shots are cut together, if you look at when they're cut, the timing of it, the sequence of it.